Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Grande Bouffe.
That's the big feast.
With myself, Cole Smithey, and my co-host, Mike Lacy. As always, we are here to copiously consume international politics and culture through the prism of a single film and a different craft beer each week. Hello, Michael.
Hey, how's it going, Cole? Coming at you hot on this nice medium weather day in New York City. It's summer, but it's all right. I got a jean jacket on, and I'm okay.
I know you're overdressed, Mike. What's up with the jean jacket?
I just like the jean jacket. Oh, and I'm rocking a little pin supporting a fellow podcaster out there who's running for Brooklyn Borough President, Ben Kissel.
Nice.
Co-host of Last Podcast on the Left. I actually have been a big fan of that show forever. I've repped it a couple times on here. I was on the train last week, and there was an enormous man who barely fit on the train, and I knew instantly that was Ben Kissel because they make a lot of jokes about how tall he is on the show, and I've looked him up, and the first question when you type in his name is, how tall is Ben Kissel? And it's something like 6'9".
Whoa.
Introduced myself to him on the train. Lovely guy. Super nice.
Wow, he's like James Comey. That guy's big, too.
I think he's like bigger than James Comey. You're like the third person who's brought that up.
Wow.
And he tells me the next day he's having a political rally at this bar in Brooklyn, and I showed up, saw him again, remembered me, bought a shirt, bought a pin, repping the Ben Kissel. When are you running for Manhattan Borough President, Cole?
Je ne sais pas.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I did hear your guy interviewed on NPR, and he was very knowledgeable and articulate. I liked him.
Ben Kissel?
No, your guy. This guy, yeah.
You heard him interview? He was on NPR?
Yeah, he was in NPR. Of course, they're all on NPR.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if you liked it, that's good, because I know you're a huge fan of NPR. You're always talking about how much
sort
you
of,
love the
sort of. How many times do they say sort of in a day on NPR? I'm guessing 3,040.
Well, Cole, it's, we're at a time when being overly confident is the greatest sin that you can be.
You
and
can't
someone who's
mitigate. You can't mitigate.
Well, Janine, sort of.
No. It makes you sound stupid. It makes you sound like you have not been to college.
Will this be good for the average Americans? Sort of.
No. The answer is no.
Do we have enough funds to keep running into 2018?
No.
Sort of. You're all black and white, Cole.
Well, maybe we should talk about the beer.
Yeah, I'd love to.
You picked the beer.
Yeah,
for Stalker.
I'll give a little preview of my assessment of the movie, and to get to the thematic connection of this beer. This is Ommegang. Am I saying that right? Ommegang Nirvana IPA, and
a lovely little beer.
It's a lovely little beer. I picked it because I think this movie is a kind of parable about enlightenment, about trying to get at the big secret and the meaning of life, and that's place is often known as Nirvana, and no spoilers as to whether I think they get there in the movie Stalker, but I think it's a story about people trying to get at the sweet spot, the Nirvana in life, and I'll tell you, this beer is a little bit of a trip to Nirvana. I'm a fan of this.
I like it.
This is a complex IPA. This is more than just when someone takes what seems like a hoppy brew and then ups it a bunch. We've had some on here that's like, wow, you took one of the flavors in a beer and just turned it to 11. This is a much more nuanced, interesting flavor happening here.
Yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of different hops in it. I'm looking at Beer Advocate where it has a score of 87, which is very good.
That's a lot better than you gave Wonder Woman, I hear.
Uh-oh. Did you see Wonder Woman?
I did.
What did you think?
I liked it a lot.
Oh my God, I thought it was so horrible.
You don't like any superhero movie.
The accents in the beginning and the whole opening 20 minutes are so bad. Why? How are these people professional actors? How do they get paid to do?
It's an invented accent, which is also just an Israeli accent because they're trying to magic Gal Gadot. You pronounce the T because she's Israeli, I learned. But yeah, it's kind of weird that they couldn't get one actress to lose her accent, so they made everyone else kind of copy hers.
It was
That's really
just awful,
happening.
And then it just happened throughout the whole movie. And then when you finally get to the end and there's the good guy who's really a bad guy, there was no lead up into that subplot. That just gets dropped on you. And her whole thing, she's fighting on the Western Front with her shield and they're firing thousands upon thousands of bullets at her, but she's hiding behind her shield.
She's literally a goddess.
That is something that I thought of when I was 8 years old, and I'm not 8 years old anymore.
People had, in World War I, these fantasies about these angels that would come and protect them like that. It's interesting that it's kind of an homage to what was a real kind of hallucination that people are having when they get all
And also, it's 2017, and we have real issues. We have real modern-day problems.
Yeah, like lack of feminist portrayals of women and female directors being respected.
I don't know. I just saw Sofia Coppola's The Beguiled, and I really enjoyed it. It's got a great female cast.
Well, Patty Jenkins just made more money than any female director of all time, and that's a good sign for... it's a good...
quantity is not quality, and I can't believe you of all people are confused about this. I hear this argument all the time about how much money something made. Did you get any of that money? Did you get any of that money? If they paid me,
why do you think I'm repping it right now? Obviously, I'm getting some of that money.
Oh man, I'm jealous. Come on.
Getting that WW cash on the side.
Uh-huh.
This movie brought to you by...
That movie, and the pacing was horrible. It just went on and on and on, and then it looked like it was going to end, but no, there's another 15 minutes left of this dog.
Okay, there's never been in the last 8 or 10 years a decent DC movie. Say what you will, though, about the Chris Nolan Batman movies, but do you like any of the Marvel movies, which this is most similar to?
Look, I've said it.
I think that's a threshold issue.
I've said it a million times, and I'll say it again. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2 is the high watermark for all superhero movies.
It's the one with Doc Ock, is that right?
Yeah. And that...
I hate those Spider-Man movies. I don't care about them at all.
That, to me, that's the high watermark. Nothing has even come remotely close in the Marvel or DC world.
Have you seen Captain America 2? Because it's in some ways like a deep homage to Marathon Man, which is interesting. Yeah, it's like a 70s spy thriller more than anything else.
But there's Marathon Man, so
why watch?
Why are you doing? Why are you doing that?
You can make an homage to something. But no, I mean, if you're into superhero movies, it's one of the best. If you're not, yeah, it's garbage like all of them, you know.
What's one of the best?
I think Wonder Woman is one of the best of this genre.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I could not disagree more. I gave the movie an F.
That's so ridiculous.
I would have given it an F- if it wouldn't be redundant to do so. It is a complete and utter waste of time.
I'm sure you and Armand got to team up again, the Wonder Twins of shitting on things people love.
It's not like that. Armand and I,
from very different angles, I think you come to some similar conclusions sometimes, every once in a while.
That may be a coincidence, but in Andrei Tarkovsky's Stalker, my take on the movie is that...
Nice pivot. Nice segue there.
It's Jean-Paul Sartre's No Exit meets Waiting for Godot in Chernobyl.
Too many homages. I don't like homages in movies. I just like...
No, it's not an homage.
I just want the original Chernobyl. I don't want it in movie
I'm not saying
form.
this. I'm not saying this as an homage. I'm saying if you were going to pitch this movie in Hollywood, that's what you'd say. You'd say it's No Exit meets Waiting for Godot in Chernobyl.
Yeah, no, that's honestly, I think it's a pretty decent description. Yeah. Let's get in the plot of this.
All right.
Because I think you can actually sum up the plot pretty simply. You know, there's a lot going on and a lot of nothing. If you were to say this was a boring movie, I wouldn't disagree with you.
Well, you've got the Russian Woody Harrelson as Stalker, which is a Rudyard Kipling homage.
Yeah, I would love you to unpack that. So we have 3 characters who are known by their professions. We have Stalker.
Right.
We have
the professor.
There's
no Mary. Sadly, there's no Marianne.
Yeah.
And the writer.
And the writer. And they call each other that. and they're on an expedition which Stalker leads people on as a sort of tour guide
into the zone.
A place where there was a asteroid collision, I believe. And then it's clearly been shut down. The government is protecting it, and it is a bit Chernobyl-like. I imagine
the
people did a
normal
similar,
laws of physics don't really apply here, and it's very post-war. Everything feels very post-war,
including there's a very specific visual and cinematographic split between the regular world, which is a bleached out gold toned kind of wasteland, and the zone, which is filmed in more natural full color. And though everything is super dilapidated and falling apart, it's gorgeously shot and very saturated.
So there's a trick about this sepia tone. Tarkovsky filmed it 3 times. He shot over 5,000 feet of film. So he shot this 3 times because there was a problem with the Kodak film that they used initially and the way that it was processed, and so they lost almost everything that they had shot initially. And he went through 2 cinematographers, and they were filming in toxic areas that contributed to the death of several of the crew and Tarkovsky himself. They died of the similar lung-related illness. So there was a lot of toxic stuff in this visually toxic environment. So the whole Chernobyl thing really does have resonance.
Right. So yeah, and I mean we can get to close to the end of the movie and just in a couple sentences here is basically they go deeper and deeper into this zone, into kind of rooms within rooms, and each one there's, like you said, there's this discussion that like the laws of physics don't apply there. You don't really see that. Like
it's a very theatrically bound narrative. You could stage this on Broadway.
Yeah.
You'd have to use projectors and stuff to bring out more of the visual aspects of the landscape, but it's a philosophical discussion.
Right.
The Stalker says at one point that he's never known a happy person. I mean, this movie makes Dostoevsky seem like an optimistic romantic. This is
I think he is. I think this is a movie about.
It's a romantic comedy.
It's a romantic
between
comedy.
3 men. No, it's not.
I think Dostoevsky is a sort of hopeful, romantic, tragic, or cynic. He's trying to be as real as possible in his work, but has this like belief in like kind of spiritual ascendancy. And kind of why I picked this beer is, to me, this is most clearly a discussion about trying to find meaning in life, trying to find some sort of like inner secret knowledge that'll give you power, access to your potency or something like that. The reason they're there is that there is a inner core.
There's a room. The room.
It's like the center of like the ancient Israeli temple where like God came into the world. There's something that this asteroid has given that gives you secret access to something, and it's discussion
and their
of, like,
innermost desires will be realized.
Right.
That's the whole key. That's what they're after. But it's tricky because Porcupine,
this character we don't know but we hear about,
who was
another stalker.
He was. I'm not sure if he was Stalker's brother.
I don't think he was. I think he.
But
was.
he was the former Stalker, and
let's unpack what a stalker is. So, from my assessment, it sounds like you understand it's like a reference to Kipling. They're in a sense tour guides, and I believe this stalker used to live there, and he has all of these sort of tricks of the trade to get you there safely. And
it's a very dangerous environment.
Yeah, and like I want to clarify, he keeps saying that, but like, what are they talking about? Like, they're not like nothing.
And they do this. He does this weird thing where he ties pieces of cloth onto these little
nuts,
metal nuts. I mean, they're big nuts,
right? And
he throws them, and that's to see if something's going to explode. It's like if there would be a landmine there or something.
So a couple of things about like the head space that he's in and that he brings everyone else into is it's very child like these are like the rules of a childhood game where you would cross through like some like bamboo in your backyard, and you have all of these tricks and like this inherited knowledge that doesn't really like hold water.
But it gives Tarkovsky free artistic reign to show this very alien-looking landscape. It's a very uncomfortable. It's the most uncomfortable landscape that I can imagine. It's unnerving, it's wet. There's all this water everywhere, and there's these little pools, and you can see signs of life that were there before. There'll be a little piece of a magazine, torn piece of magazine that you can read through the water, and there's a gun,
and there's old icons from like a Byzantine church, like just underwater being run over. There's all of these artifacts of what was at once like a thriving community. It's all abandoned, and
it seems that there's no wild. Well, I guess there is some wildlife because there's fish.
There's fish and that dog.
And the dog.
But that's kind of it.
Mm-hmm. There's no birds. It doesn't seem like the kind of environment that would be good for wildlife.
So Stalker's escorting them into the inner sanctum, and it's sort of this inner room is a MacGuffin in a sense. It's what we're waiting to see. I don't know if that's exactly the way to put it, but it's the end goal that we're going for. And I guess let's wait a bit to say like what happens when they really get there. Though you brought up Waiting for Godot. It's maybe a little bit lackluster. It's the journey that's important, and also the people on this journey that when you start engaging with what they're often monologuing about and what this inner quest means to them, that you start to take away things from this movie that find interesting. So who's Stalker? The first thing that we see about Stalker basically is
that he has a family.
Well, I think even before that, he's a drug addict. Am I wrong to remember that there are there's needles and like a spoon next to his bed?
Yeah, and that shows up a lot in the movie. There are these hypodermics, and they're the old kind of glass hypodermic needles. And I came away thinking that maybe that had something to do with medicine for his daughter. She's on crutches. So yeah, the hypodermics are a recurring, I guess, image system that he uses, and I'm really not sure about where that comes from because Stalker doesn't appear to be a drug user. We never see him doing any drugs.
Oh, I thought he kind of seemed like he was. They referenced one time that he's nervous, he's twitching, and I wondered if he was kind of going through withdrawal, going into the zone.
I don't know. And then his wife has that monologue at the end where she makes him sound like a criminal.
I thought she made him sound. Yeah, like a criminal, like an addict, but also an alien.
Uh-huh.
There's an otherliness to him.
Well, he has this very weird, he has very cropped hair, but he has this white spot on the left side of his head. And through the movie, sometimes his hair will be entirely white or blonde. And then that white spot. So it really gives him, I don't know if that's really his hair, or if they used makeup to as a point, because a lot of times it seems like it could be makeup.
Well, this movie is people talking about their attempts to transcend
their lives,
and maybe Stalker is an alien. There's something interesting going on with this child, which I think we'll get to in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe an alien life form or intelligence dropped an asteroid onto the planet and it really does give you powers. Or maybe this is just people grasping at there being something more and it's all inane, and Stalker is not really bringing people deeper into their deepest desires, providing them any good. He gives this kind of speech about how...
Well, they do live near nuclear reactors. You do see nuclear reactors when they're in the bar. When they walk outside of the bar, you can see the nuclear reactors in the background. So I think that Tarkovsky is making commentary about...
This kind of interrelationship almost between sickness, pollution, and things being alien.
Radioactivity.
Right. It certainly changes people, and I imagine plenty of people have been poisoned by toxins and felt like they were kind of developing special skills or like mutating in healthy ways when really they're kind of just falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there isn't a kind of an unstated relationship with the extraterrestrial or the supernatural. People are trying to get access to something by trespassing.
But these characters, they want to remove themselves from society. They talk early on when they're going into the zone about how they're alone now, and you don't see many people in the story. You might only see the bartender when they're at the bar.
See the wife,
and you see the wife and the child and the other two men. And I don't know if you see
a couple soldiers, maybe a half dozen.
That they have to hide from.
But there's one guard who we see in a close-up shot.
And they shoot at them as they're trying to go into the zone.
They're trying to go into the zone. Yeah, but an interesting thing, right, about that these the two guests into the zone have in common. One of whom, Ryder, has a longer relationship with Stalker, and knows a bit about the zone and is a little versed on it, and we get a fair amount of exposition from him. But both he and Professor have a self-destructive streak, this, almost death wish sort of. The closer you get to sort of escalating plot, besides just going deeper into the space, is we learn more about Professor, who has stolen a weapon, and his goal is to blow up the center of the zone.
Yeah, he wants to destroy the room.
And what's interesting is he narcs on himself. It turns out there's a working phone in the center of it, which is a very
in the room,
which is a very like weird thing to learn. Is that in the center of it, there's still electricity, there's still phone, there's a bit more technology and like contact with the outside world than you'd think. I want to bring up again the ancient tabernacle of the Israelites. Like in the Bible, it's described in like insanely specific detail what it should be like, and it's designed this way so that God's like breath can come into the world, he can have access to it. And I just think if you got into the center of it, to the most the holy of holies, the sacred space, and they had like a laptop in there, you'd be
okay. But wait a minute, I think you're missing something here, which is that this is the complete opposite of that, because it is such a decayed. We're casually talking about this room, but it looks like what's left of a shell of a building after a nuclear bomb has gone off.
Right.
Everything here, it just looks decayed and ugly, and there's a beauty in the decay. And I certainly think that filmmakers like Bellatar and Pedro Costa and David Lynch, I think they all were informed by this film specifically for that reason. If you look at something like Eraserhead, I think that the urban landscape that Lynch uses in Eraserhead is directly drawn from this film.
It's a kind of dilapidation that a set designer would have such a hard time replicating, and you get a sense that this really is a place that is full of, as you were saying, like pollution, toxins, has fallen apart, and there were many shots where I was like,
it's disgusting.
Both technically so impressed that they were getting these tracking shots, even including these forward ones that are very difficult because you can't, like, you would normally be able to see the track underneath the camera, and so it's
the one where they're going through the tunnel and there's all the stuff hanging down, and somehow the camera is going right through that stuff. And you've seen Solaris, Tarkovsky's Solaris.
I haven't actually.
He uses similar shots in Solaris with this idea of these tunnels, and it's beautiful. It's visually, it's just so.
I saw this
compelling.
at IFC, or actually, I saw part of this at IFC. And before it, they had a very interesting short, which was a visual guide to Tarkovsky, and they did a lot of comparisons between this and Solaris as these sort of like very much communicating pieces. One set in like a broken down space station, one set in a broken down industrial plant town.
Yeah, he filmed a lot of this stuff in these two disused hydroelectric plants. So that's I think they've since been renovated, but obviously at the time that he filmed this stuff there, they were really in utter disrepair. No one had been there.
And it really makes you think about things you did as a kid. Like, if you knew that there was a broken down power station in your neighborhood and you had to go through the woods, first of all, as a kid, you'd taxonomize all of it. Like, all right, first of all, we got to cross the stream of death.
Yeah, you have to go investigate. It's an adventure. You got to go on the adventure.
You got your one friend who's been there and saw a body and is going to take you to
in here, there's the one guy who doesn't really believe it's dangerous. Is that the professor who doesn't really think it's dangerous? Or no, it's the writer who doesn't. I can't remember. No, it's the professor who doesn't think it's dangerous.
So,
right?
so yeah, we mentioned the professor wants to blow it up, has narked on himself, and by calling in and admitting that he's stolen this bomb that was hidden in.
Well, he also isn't he the one who also says that he brought poison to kill himself?
Yeah, he's got a whole plan.
It all involves death somehow.
Yeah, so. While, I was bringing up, the Israelite Holy of Holies, this sort of, rooms within rooms, and, and I got this beer Nirvana because it just reminds me of different sort of, paths that people bring up to talk about enlightenment. You could talk about, St. Teresa of Avila's, interior castles. This is not, a cool, chill, being enlightened thing. This is a very bleak, very run-down version of getting inside of yourself and figuring out what life is about. If you are meditating and finding your interior spaces and they look like this,
you need a therapist. You need a really good therapist.
You need
not one of those Freudian fuckers. You need somebody good.
You need a good therapist, and you probably need to run some cheesecloth through your whole body because you're full of some toxins.
Crumb's brother who
exactly.
ran the string.
The cheesecloth. That's a real. People do that.
No, I know. Well, no, he did that. There's the documentary. Where did they show him?
Yeah, you take. If you don't know what we're talking about, this is Terry Zweigoff's Crumb. They talk about Crumb's brother who did this actual yogi thing where you take cheesecloth, 30 feet of it, and you swallow it a little inch at a time, and it goes through your entire body, through your intestines and out your butt, and you kind of floss yourself.
You floss your intestines. I used to see that guy when I lived in San Francisco. I'd see him sitting on the sidewalk in the financial district. Yeah,
he killed himself.
Right. Yeah. Didn't see that coming.
Yeah. So something like that. I don't know. There's people who are trying to deeply unpack the meaning of life, and they also are doing it in a dangerous way.
I met Robert Crumb at a Metallica documentary in Cannes.
Oh,
we were online together for about a half hour. He walked out of the movie after about 20 minutes.
Wow.
But we had a great conversation. He was an awesome guy.
He seems really lovely.
He was really fun to talk to. Just we're standing online. He was right behind me with his wife.
He seems so bubbly and has just
very chatty.
Yeah,
very chatty.
Very chatty guy.
Yeah, very, very fun conversation.
Yeah. No, I mean this movie is a bit more like Crumb's brother than Crumb himself. I think it's a very bleak look at what it is to try to find the meaning of life.
Well, it's very Eastern European. I don't think that this is a movie that Western audiences are going to find that much resonance with because it's so impoverished and morose, and I just think that the ideas that these guys are talking about, sure, the writer, his goal is to win Nobel. Is it the writer who wants to win the Nobel Prize? Or the scientist who wants to win the.
Yeah, I think the scientist
wants to win the Nobel Prize, and the writer, what's his big wish?
I forget his wish, but it's basically to be rich as shit and to live in a mansion and to be remembered for.
Yeah, to be remembered.
He wants to be remembered. So these are different paths. The path of the artist, the intellectual, the path of the scientific investigator, in the glory of it, and they're at the end of their ropes and they think that they can realize it. Maybe if they get to this inner room, it's this guy's a snake oil salesman in a sense, the stalker.
Yeah, and but it makes you realize there are people out there whose whole goal is to win some baloney award, and then that'll make them feel fulfilled. But if you've ever won an award for anything, you know what happens. You get the thing home, and then you think about where you're going to put it. And then you think, well, if I stick it up on the mantle, when people come over, they're going to think I'm really egotistical and I stare at my award all the time. So it ends up going in the bathroom or something, and it just means nothing. It's just a piece. It's just a piece of whatever that thing is made of. It might as well be paper.
Well, what's Stalker got going on for him? Does Stalker have more of a grasp on the meaningfulness of life? Like, they just take it on a straightforward level to leave any metaphor aside. He's a guy whose town, I believe he lived in the zone and was basically evicted whenever what happened. Yeah. And he takes meaning in traveling back to like the site of his former life, his former childhood, and was always apparently a kind of broken person, whether because he was a criminal or an addict or some sort of supernatural being. It's not clear to me what they mean when they say stalker. So you brought up that it's a reference to Kipling. What is that about?
Stalky and Company stories are a series of stories that Kipling wrote, and that's where these guys took the name from. So yeah, it has this very intimidating. Obviously, Stalky sounds a lot chummier and lighthearted than Stalker. So, and that's another thing that where I think the translation maybe comes off differently for Western audiences, because Stalker sounds like...
I did expect this to be about like a serial rapist.
Yes, yeah, you think it's going to be a thriller.
Yeah.
And this guy is essentially given a walking tour of
right.
of a bombed out wasteland.
You know what that title's not like? It's a lot like Blade Runner.
Uh-huh.
Right? So, like, Blade Runner doesn't appear in the Philip K. Dick story.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I think it's just called like a detective. I haven't read the story, but it's not from it. The story is called Do Androids Dream of Robotic Sheep? But Ridley Scott had read some sort of nonfiction thing about people who took knives and they ran them across state borders, called Blade Runners.
Uh-huh.
And he's like, that's a cool name.
It's a cool name, yeah.
Nothing to do with the story at all. Nothing to do with it.
Well, you know that they're remaking it with Ryan Gosling.
Or it's a sequel. It's not a reboot. It's a...
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, Harrison Ford's in it as the original character, Decker.
Yeah, the I have to say the trailer looks interesting.
I hope it is better made than current Ridley Scott projects. He didn't direct it; he's executive producing it. The guy who did Sicario, I believe, was doing it.
Denis Villeneuve.
Denis Villeneuve.
That's rather sad. I thought that movie was a piece of shite. I saw it in Cannes and I hated it.
That was the year I was at Cannes. I saw that, and I thought it was directed in a really interesting, cool way. I thought that script was... I thought the biggest problem with that movie was that it was directed in a way that was much higher art than the script. It was a pretty basic thriller. Like, if they just made an action movie out of it, that was written as an action movie.
Yeah.
And if they just did it Michael Bay-ish, it would be like, oh, it's fun. But I
like what Tarantino says, that directing is a young man's game, and that's why he's only going to make... I think he only has one more film left in him. I think that Stalker would be much better as a play. That 20 minutes needs to get edited out of it. I think it would work great as an off-Broadway play. But I still really enjoyed the movie. It's visually incredible, really arresting.
A lot to think about, a lot to unpack, and bring all your baggage to it and project it onto it, and you'll enjoy it. If you're just looking for a plot that's like super compelling, I think you're in the wrong director in general.
Yeah. Well, I think this is one of Tarkovsky's lesser films. I think Solaris works much better than this film, but I think that visually this movie is incredibly iconic and influenced a lot of filmmakers that we know and love today. And I would like to say, before we wrap up, that if any of you are listening and you listen to us every week, think about this. If you spent $5 a week for this podcast, that's the $20 screwball comedy level on Patreon. And that your $5 helps us pay for the overhead, bring the beer, pay for our time, and usually a lot of times we have to pay to watch the movies. So, just $5 a week, if you could come off of that, that would really, really help us out. So if you go to colesmithy.com, you can click on the link to Patreon, and you can also see all of our podcasts there with the fun photos of us with people like our upcoming guest, Michael Somerville. And I'll just give you guys a little spoiler alert. We're going to be talking about Caddyshack. But today it was a lot of fun drinking Nirvana IPA from Ommegang Brewery.
Yeah, I really dug this one. This one is one that I'm going to revisit in my personal life.
Yes, I think that I will have this one in the refrigerator a lot more this summer. Thank you all very much for listening. Please remember to turn your cell phones off when you're walking, driving, riding a bicycle, or watching a movie.